Welcome back to the British and Irish Pro League Season 3, where production told us to smile right before we got on camera, and Orion and Epos took that to heart. And Epos, it's okay, he's not here. The bad man has left. In fact, production has run off and abandoned us to go to the bathroom, so he can't hear us. So we can say anything we want right now. And we're going to use that time to actually talk about what's going on with the gameplay here a little bit. Before we get into it anymore, of course, sorry a little bit for the delays there. There were a couple of issues with the seeding spreadsheet. Those have all been resolved now. No major issues. Nobody has dropped from Div 1 down into Div 2. Just some shuffling in the order of seeding in Div 2. So everything is fine. We're totally A-okay, and we are going to be jumping into our first Div 2 match of the evening in just a couple of minutes here. We are going to be heading over into match 3. That is cozzer, MSR, Burntbagels, and a player going by the name of Hendo22, who is not, in fact, Hendo22. That is zRebell. Epos, how are you feeling about this match? I mean, it's seed 4 and 5 and seed 13 and 14.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, looking by the numbers, you've got two battles going on. You've got the battle between Cozzers and zRebell, and you have MSR and Burntbagels. But I mean, if you looked at Bagels last season, he had a match where he did a run all the way through last chance, and he got very, very far in it. So it can still be pretty close. But it's hard to call the first place. But if I were to, I think I'd back Cozzers, just because I know the practice that he individually has put in is pretty substantial. Picking for a second place, I'd have to put safely on zRebell, and then the battle between 3 and 4, Bagels has match experience. Bagels has a lot of match experience. So I'm going to go for Cozzers in first. I'm going to go for zRebell in second. We've got Bagels in third and MSR in fourth. But it's not to say that the tables can't turn.
No, absolutely. I am going to point out that Bagels has qualified once again as the 13th seed. Bagels was 13th seed in BIPL Season 2 as well, Orion, and ended up coming 5th in that. So, I mean, there's something to be said about maybe Bagels doesn't do great in this seeding format, maybe struggles a little bit, but the match performance, as Epos said, and the match experience, definitely there.
Yeah, potentially just hasn't been able to put the time in for the seeding week, but as you say, you say 5th overall by the end of
But in Division 2 was 5th overall, yeah.
So potential again to climb up from his seeding position. Is he going to be beating the likes of cozzer and zRebell in week 1? No, probably not. Given that we've just seen all these guys seed then, and this is the order we've ended up with, I'm pretty much with Epos, to be honest. I think zRebell will give cozzer a good go, a good run for his money. But just watching all of those rounds, cozzer seemed to be up the front more often. I saw his name popping up more often at the front of the field. That's kind of the only bias I have to go off, really. But yeah, Epos did also say that it probably will be kind of a match of two halves in terms of the MSR Bagels battle, and then cozzer versus zRebell ultimately to win this match. Is how I think it's going to pan out.
Yeah, completely fair. I'm just having to flick through their times from the seeding, because I think what's interesting as well is, we have 8 rounds per map from these guys just played. Literally, they're coming off the back of it. And just having a quick glance down at it and looking, what was the consistency like for them? And I will say, I think relatively similar. I do actually think cozzer over zRebell might have managed to be the slightly more consistent player, but the highs much, much higher than for zRebell as well. Like, has clearly more pace in the back pocket. He's half a second clear of cozzer's best time on most of the maps, but obviously finished very close in the seeding, largely just because of, it looks like, maybe a little bit more inconsistency. And that's the kind of thing, Epos, I think that can definitely get exacerbated once you actually get into this match setting as well, because that tends to be a sign, for me at least, of someone who, as we called out in seeding, is very good when they push, but when they're pushing, does tend to push over the edge a little bit as well. And that's something that happens a lot when you're in matches and you feel you need to get past someone.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess in that respect, it's kind of going to be zRebell fighting a little bit against himself, because, I mean, like you say, he has the pace. So, I mean, if he has the pace, he should, on paper, be able to outdo cozzers. But if you can't do it 4 times in a row on a map, then it doesn't mean that much, does it?
It really does not. Epos, those are the wise words that we're going to have to leave you on, because we are into warm-up for our first match of the evening. We're going to take myself and Orion into the cast. Epos, thanks for joining us, and we will see you after the match.
Yeah, good luck.
Orion, that leaves me and you, and for the moment, Epos' face on camera as well, because I didn't clear this with production. I don't know when they're going to actually cut off. So, okay, thank you. We don't have to have Epos stare into our souls for too long on this one, as we will get ready for this first match of Division 2 of BIPL Season 3 to kick off. And I am looking forward to this one. It's always nice to be back with competition, and especially now getting into Season 3. I mean, once you start to get past the first or second edition of something at any point, you know, it really does, it starts to feel like home, right? You start to settle into it a little bit more.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I just want to remind everyone of the format as well that we're playing here. If anyone watched Beacon, it's a very similar format to that. Point deductions are slightly different. I think it's 2 points for first, 4 for second. Oh, no, or is that Beacon and I'm getting confused? Nua, help me, please. Is it
I'm
1, 4, 7,
desperately
10?
parsing the rule book here. Don't worry about it as... Oh, I can't find it. Well, we'll figure it out when we get on into it. It's probably down in the appendix somewhere.
But the second half of my point was going to be that we do actually have match points as well. So whoever sets the fastest time on a certain map will be awarded 1 additional point, I believe.
Correct.
For that best time.
Yeah, so 3 bonus points available per match, as we only have 3 maps per match as well. And also, for anyone who is making those Beacon comparisons, there are slightly more points available just for finishing position as well. So it will be 3 points for 4th place, it will be 6 points for 3rd place, it'll be 9 points for 2nd place, and it will be 12 full points for whoever does win a match. So a little bit different there, and it does not, it devalues deliberately those kind of map records just a little bit. They will still be a difference maker, but it's not quite the be all end all.
Absolutely, but we are into our first round here, and it is Rebel streaking into a lead, cozzer following closely behind, and this is kind of what Epos was saying. Rebel does have the pace advantage, but cozzer has the consistency. This time, no crash from Rebel. A bit of a janky ending, but does make it into the finish. Bagels beating out MSR. So they have finished in seed order for round 1. But as we say, plenty of rounds left to go. Only 4 rounds per map. Now that we are into the matches, we played 8 on each map for seeding. Now down to 4. So the maps will continue to rotate as we eliminate players. Once you have exhausted all of your points, you will go down to last chance mode. And if you...
Exactly. So, plenty of match to settle in for here, and Rebel still sitting pretty comfortable at the top and carrying a lot of speed early in the track as well. What goes from 3rd to 1st in the course of a couple of turns. Bagels fighting back though. Didn't have a great first round, but is looking to stay competitive here in our second round. Battling wheel to wheel with Hendo. Well, I'm going to slip up. That is Rebel. The name we've never had problems in the scene with players changing names at random times, have we, Orion?
No.
Hey, Bagels crashed. Hey, don't worry about it. If you know, you know. Bagels will hit a wall there. Cozzer is coming back on Rebel as well, heading towards the end of the track as well. It is a very tight battle. Anyone's for the taking. Cozzer goes very wide, a little bit more speed, and Rebel will hit the wall. We'll have to go for the safe finish as well. Drops 2 places, might drop the last as well. Not quite, as MSR was just a little bit too far down the track to take advantage.
Yep, that's the difference. Cozzer, again, driving consistently, and a mistake right at the end there from Rebel allows Cozzer to put some points between himself and his nearest competitor as well. Bagels driving a semi-clean round, able to get in second courtesy of that mistake. But we go on to the 3rd and penultimate round here. We've had Rebel win one of the rounds, Cozzer win the other. Bit of a wider line there from Rebel, and he's going to bleed speed as you see Cozzer coming through into the lead. Both get the outside dirt turn. Nice. Rebel carry. This guy needs to change his name. This is infuriating as we see Bagels and MSR into the same pole at the same time. What if we kissed at the Trackmania pole on Nina? Say those 2 players.
At this point, I do want the name to be changed to Hendo Sorry Rebel. I think that is the funniest possible name to change to. But we'll see how this battle does play out. cozzer got the best of it last time around, as Rebel did push a little bit too hard around the final few corners and ended up in a wall. And this time around, cozzer has a little bit of a gap built up. Couple of tenths is the difference. This is where things went wrong for Rebel. They'll go wrong for Rebel even earlier this time around. Completely stuck in that wall, having to reverse to get out of it. And here comes Bagels with a lot of speed. I'm not convinced Rebel will have the speed to make the risky fin. Bagels is going to crash though. And Hendo / Rebel is upside down at the finish line as well. Bagels' time. MSR has picked up a sneaky second place, 7 seconds behind cozzer. And Bagels ultimately does pick up third. Rebel gets the full -12 for a DNF as well. Didn't think we were going to be seeing that come into play so early in competition.
Man, 3 rounds into BIPL and we've already had our first clown fiesta. What are the odds? Like, just complete pandemonium. Rebel no sliding straight into a wall, doesn't opt to respawn, just goes for the takes the next checkpoint, and then somehow ends up upside down on the safe finish.
Yeah,
not quite sure how that one's happened. Yeah.
And to think, Orion, that all started because you said, "What if we kissed at the Trackmania pole?" and the players got flustered.
Yeah, exactly. It would be enough to fluster anyone.
Well, I mean, Rebel's not looking too flustered then in this following round. Is off to a decent lead, and cozzer has had a massive incident early on in the track, so finished the first round in first, now 5 seconds behind. That's a little bit of a readjustment from Bagels losing a lot of speed, so there goes MSR through into second place. And something worth highlighting here in Division 2 as well, just driving cleanly. Plenty. Honestly, MSR proved in the last round that just being the car left on track, even 7 seconds behind, was enough for second place. This time around, it'll be a second place again. Had to work a lot harder for that one, though.
I was about to say, we have a clear leader going into the next map, but we don't anymore because cozzer has just had a howler of a round and is down to -10. So what we thought was going to be a nice little, 2-horse race in terms of Rebel versus cozzer and MSR versus Bagels is actually turning out to be not the case. Like, all 4 players making some pretty serious mistakes at various times during that map, and there's kind of no clear front runner or last place at the moment. It's wide open, and I would also say that is the easiest map to finish. The next 2 have a little bit more jank to them.
I was going to say, there was a conversation with EPOS. I think it happened off camera there, but kind of talking about which of these maps was maybe the most difficult. And I think the kind of consensus that was arrived at was that Drowsy is the most interesting, kind of has the most unique elements throughout it, but that Creel might just edge it out in terms of just raw difficulty as a map, in terms of a competitive map. And with that in mind, the fact that Nina never really entered the discussion on either of those fronts, things likely only going to get more interesting from here on out as we do get ready to head into Drowsy for our second map. Score is still close. 14 points separate all of the players after map 1. Not a blowout for anyone just yet, but again, with this format, with the -10 that you get in 4th place as well, all it really takes is to pick up 2 or 3 4th places, or a couple of 4th places and a couple of 3rd places, and you do start to see your points total drain away alarmingly quickly.
Yes, you do. I think it was clear to see that Rebel, like Epos said, definitely had the best pace.
Yeah,
but ultimately was not converting that pace
upside down at the
wins.
Safe finish.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I would say right now, if I had to pick a favorite, cozzer for sure. It depends if Rebel is able to iron out his inconsistencies, because he's definitely faster than cozzer, but just seems to be like his finishing position, average finishing position, seems worse. And in this match scenario, that is ultimately going to cost you first place.
Yeah, well, there is the first mistake immediately on Drowsy for Rebel, and it's a pretty big one, losing a couple of seconds near the start of the map, and Bagels will spin out as well off the edge of the plastic and look to recover now. So it's cozzer versus MSR at the front, and MSR, we do have to call it out, the dodgy internet making things much more exciting as we try to figure out where at any given moment in time MSR actually is.
MSR doing his best impression of an electron right now. He's there, but where?
We cannot know MSR's position and speed. We can only know one at any given time. Heisenberg uncertainty principle applied to Trackmania. As well, MSR crashed right before the finish, so cozzer picks up an easy round win. It all comes down to when MSR can get across the line. It's still in second place as Rebel and Burntbagels both have larger incidents. They will now both manage to get across the line. Well, Rebel did. Burntbagels taking a while longer to get there. And that will be the full -10 for Bagels. I'm going to give credit to MSR right now for doing what you need to do in Div 2 of BIPL, which is just finish, not make major mistakes very often. That's multiple second places in a row for MSR and slowly starting to pull back up the leaderboard.
Yeah, definitely not the fastest player, but is getting into the finish within a second of the leaders, and if any of those leaders do make a mistake, as Rebel has done on a few occasions, he's there to capitalize. And it's a good strat, to be honest. Like, it's a strat that I myself employed in seeding for BIPL last time. Like, I knew I wasn't the fastest player, so I just trained consistency. And some players will just do that. They will consign themselves to, yeah, I'm not going to win this match on pace, but when someone makes a mistake, like Rebel has there, I'll overtake them. And it means that I won't finish first every round, but I'm not also going to finish fourth either.
Yeah, Rebel having a little bit of a rough time here to kick things off on Drowsy as well. Interesting, because I do believe that this was Rebel's best map coming out of seeding, and given how much of seeding is that rounds format as well, you do expect at least some of that to carry over. Now, it's not a disaster in this round for Rebel. Bagels crash there means Rebel does pick up a second place. cozzer does take first overall, and MSR will have to settle for a third place this time around, as the mistakes weren't there. MSR was once again in a position to capitalize, a second off the lead, but just less mistakes in front, right?
Yeah, cozzer is building up a nice gap, though. 16 points right now. It seems like it should be more than that, given how many mistakes we've seen Rebel make so far, as MSR just clips the start, so he's going to be a couple of tenths behind from the get-go, maybe even dropping a gear or two on the way through. Bit of a... I thought it was a bonk there from Rebel, but does seem to make it through cleanly and isn't too far behind, still definitely within touching distance. But Bagels is also driving I'd say he was driving a very good match. He's currently in last place, but seems to be better on this map. MSR 61 points within touching distance of Rebel, who makes another mistake. I don't think we've seen more crash runs from Rebel than we have clean runs so far. It's really not going well for him, given that Epos highlighted that he does have that half a second or so pace advantage over cozzer.
All right, I know we like Epos, but it was me that made that point, Orion. We don't even give all the credit to Epos.
Sorry, I thought it was Epos. My bad.
We do sound very similar. You're right, absolutely. Bagels will go into wall. Bagels in particular has found that turn particularly difficult, I think, and cozzer is just continuing to capitalize on the mistakes around him. Another 104 low from cozzer, and that has been the time, I think, in general. Rebel might be facing down another DNF here as well. Needs to find a way into the finish. The safe fin, couple of seconds left, will manage to get there in time. So not a -12, but it is another -10.
Yeah, down to 60 points now. So it's more a fight between Rebel, MSR, and Bagels than it is between Rebel and cozzer, as we thought it might be. cozzer is going to be loving looking at the leaderboard after he's finished it. Never mind.
Well, that's tough. That happens. That's tough. Well, cozzer is out to a pretty bad start on this one. Now a long way behind the rest of the field. Rebel gets very close to the wall on the outside dirt. Manages to stay ahead of Bagels by keeping the car out of the wall. That's Bagels just playing it significantly safer there. And ultimately playing it safe has paid off, because that is Rebel into a pole and MSR through into second.
Yeah, I don't think cozzer's going to be able to catch after the early mistake. Bagels with a mistake, though. MSR with a mistake. Here comes Rebel again. Is he going to be able to catch? Bagels has not been great at the last turn on this map. That reactor up the grass. We'll see if he can nail it this time, because if he can, first place for Bagels at this point would be absolutely huge. Also, a first place for Rebel would be huge. Bagels does make it through. Just a few turns left, threading the needle.
Slow.
He's lost a little bit of speed there. He's going to get sniped by Rebel at the death. MSR comes through to take third. cozzer all the way back in fourth place. I think that's the first fourth place we've seen for cozzer. Yeah, that is the end of Drowsy, though, and the chaos continues, Nua.
Yeah, that's as Div 2. I know at some point earlier I saw on Twitch chat the I love Trackmania esports emote, and I think now more than any time is the time to start to spam that, because
Oh, yeah.
that's how it goes. That's Div 2 as well, especially where the consistency maybe lacks a little bit compared to the very top, the elites of the league. And just keeping your head screwed on tight is plenty a lot of the time. That has been an issue for the players on Drowsy. We are heading then into our final map of the pack, Creel, and then things wrap back around to the start. I think likely that we see Drowsy again. I think almost impossible that we don't see Drowsy again this evening in this match at the very least. But I am excited to see these players on Creel. Now, as much as we did kind of have EPOS saying that maybe Creel is the hardest of the three maps, I think that Drowsy still has more potential for those kind of moments throughout the course of it. So it might be more difficult to get the optimum time on Creel, but hopefully we should be seeing something a little bit less crash prone as we head on in.
Yeah, I was thinking that Rebel might become slightly more consistent as the match went on, just early teething problems, but if anything, he's getting worse. And I mean, cozzer now is the clear favorite for the match for me, unless he completely implodes on Creel and is third or fourth in every round. But based on previous performance on the last two maps, I can't really see that being an eventuality. We'll see how things go. I am interested to see if MSR and Bagels are able to take the fight to Rebel here if he has a Howler on this map.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about it. There was 3 out of the last 4 rounds, or 3 out of the 4 rounds that we just drove on Drowsy, Rebel did end up with a crash on. It was 2 out of 4 back on Nina as well. So it's been a tough match. That's also, it's worth noting, not out of line with how the rest of the lobby has been driving. Bagels had 4 out of 4 rounds crashed back on Drowsy and is kicking things off looking pretty similar here as well, as is Rebel. So crashes continue. Creel is taking casualties as well, but cozzer and MSR are still very much in the fight. Cozzer does look to be pulling away. We'd jump on board with MSR if that wasn't going to potentially cause some fits amongst the audience, because MSR's internet, it's not looking... Yeah. Cozzer, don't crash! Cozzer, don't crash!
Reverse!
Cozzer
Reverse.
simply crashed.
Put it in reverse!
Hey, Bagels is there to take advantage.
Yep. Straight into the hole there for cozzer, instead of going through it, as is the optimum line. But cozzer with a nice 69 points there. Clearly, it was all planned. All planned.
Yeah, deliberate and tied then between Rebel and MSR, and they're both 10 points exactly in front of Bagels. And hey, it's a 10-point swing between first and last in this one, so that is not a massive gap. You'd have to say cozzer feeling pretty good about where he is, but everyone else very much still in the trenches, trying to fight their way through to the end of this one. Rebel just looking for one clean round. It won't come from Bagels, who has now crashed 6 out of the last 6 rounds. It might even be more, depending on when those crashes happened back on Nina. If he crashed the last round on that one, we're at 7 out of 7. So Bagels looking to clean it up is the worst part, not out of this fight. Crashed the last round, still picked up a 2nd place.
Does that statistically mean that he's the most consistent player in the lobby right now?
It might do. Yeah, honestly, you could well be right. Although, I mean, Rebel is chasing him down, because that was a crash from Rebel as well, and a worse one on this occasion. As Bagels might technically not get counted as a crash. I believe a crash is 1.5 seconds off the lead. And so I don't think that round actually counts as a crash for Bagels.
Yeah, I can't even remember where he... Was it just a clip on the outside dirt at the start?
Bit of a clip. Wheel popped high. Or ended up in a wall. Something happened, yeah. But listen, didn't really end up count. Doesn't count. Bagels gets technically counted as a crashless round. Hendo doesn't, though. Rebel doesn't. Sorry, Hendo. Slander.
Yeah. I'm looking at the fastest lap points as well right now. Currently, we've got Rebel with 1 fastest lap point on Nina. And we have cozzer with 2 fastest lap points for Drowsy and the current map Creel. Obviously, we will be probably playing, well, definitely playing Nina again, and more than likely playing Drowsy again, so that has the potential to change, and you would expect maybe in favour of cozzer, especially on Nina, taking that point away from Drowsy. And cozzer looking good for a match win, could actually make it a perfect... what would it be? How many
15
points
points
for a win? 15 points. Yeah, that would be
total.
quite the match for him.
The Grand Slam, if you will. Match
Yep.
win plus all 3 match records. Cozzer could do it. Absolutely in a position to do so. Looking to chase down Hendo and MSR. Going wide on that final corner. MSR flickered out of existence, only to flicker back in front of Cozzer across the line. And that is a solid round from the top 3 players this time around. Bagels, on the other hand, struggling a little bit. 4 seconds adrift. Saved on a technicality from going crashing in the last 8 rounds. But in actuality, Bagels has in fact crashed at least the last 8 rounds in a row and is having a very, very tough time dropping quickly towards 0 points.
Yeah, and as we talked about it there, Rebel actually getting that point for fastest lap back on Creel here. So it's evident to see the pace he has, but it's just very crash prone. Don't know how much he was training rounds. Probably a really good time attack player. It would be interesting to look at how he did in time attack versus rounds, because you can see ultimately the pace is there, but he's just too accident prone to really challenge cozzer in this match.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've thrown a question my way, and so immediately what I did was went to go and look at it. But I don't have an answer for you immediately. I'll have to get back to you on that one. But at the moment, not a great round again for Rebel, who has touched just a little bit, drops down, but still has the potential to snipe away a second place, as MSR is just racing off into the distance at the moment. Cozzer and Hendo, Cozzer and Rebel, the battle that we expected maybe for first and second in this match, and Hendo will crash. And I said Hendo again, it was Rebel, got not quite sniped at the line as Bagels came flying through, but Cozzer does walk away with a second place and will be happy for it.
Yeah, impressive of Hendo to crash there without even being in the match.
I'm going to PSA players, stop doing dumb things with your names, because it's just annoying for everyone for multiple reasons, and especially me right now. Again, the only apology I will accept at this point is if Rebel does change their name to Hendo Sorry Rebel, so that it is the full name the entire time.
Hendo, I mean Rebel.
Also a very viable possibility. I kind of love that too.
Should remind everyone that Hendo is actually playing in Div 1. We didn't see him seeding because he didn't need to. He was good enough last time out that he kept his position in Div 1, but Hendo is actually playing. I hope we don't see a match with him later, because I know that one of us will say Rebel at some point, won't we?
Might just deliberately start calling him Rebel.
Yeah.
That'll be fun. Yeah, we'll see. Which match is Hendo playing in later? Hendo is playing in the match up against, I don't know, I'm blind. Leo, Shawnee Wolf, Niruko, and Hendo is the matchup later on. Hendo, hey, should have a decent time in that one. We'll wait and see. Plenty to happen yet this evening. We will be showing a Div 1 match after this one. It is yet to be decided which one we will be showing, and that's why we're on tenterhooks, just as you are waiting to see what happens. That's all in the future. For now, we're getting ready to dive back in, rotating back around to Nina on this match and see who manages to walk away. It is getting a little bit scary down at the bottom of the leaderboard for Burntbagels. Burntbagels, a player who has made a stand on elimination mode before, though.
Yeah, he has gone deep into matches, holding on to that last chance. And I would actually bet that whoever ends up on last chance could stay there for quite some time, because all 4 players seem so kind of crash heavy that, if you're on last chance, you'd still have a pretty good chance of not finishing last. Just based on the fact that everyone else in the lobby is not actually that consistent. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. As for this round, though, cozzer in first place, but Rebel carrying a lot of speed, goes for a tighter inside line, ends up further outside, and actually Bagels overtakes momentarily. That's a touch, though, from Rebel, followed by cozzer. Bagels into the lead. Cozzer, his accident less severe than Rebel. MSR currently in third. See if Bagels can hold this together for a win. Cozzer has a lot more speed, though. The snipe surely coming through here, and it does. Cozzer into first, Bagels second, and it's actually Rebel finishing plumb last here. Not great. MSR is now, what, 12 points clear of Rebel.
But also a long way behind cozzer as a result of that incredible fight back from cozzer in that round after what looked like nearly a round-ending wall hit. Was very lucky not to flip the car on that outside dirt. With that in mind, I do think the strategy for cozzer now is just full switch. Just be consistent from here on out. Make sure you're not coming in fourth, because all of your opponents are about to start hitting last chances before you. They're likely to start stealing -10s off each other if the rest of the match is anything to go by as well. And if you can just start to eliminate one or two players and keep the rest of them low by staying consistent from here on out, which cozzer has done a very good job up until this point of doing as well, I think you're feeling really good about where this goes.
Yeah, this is probably the best round so far between Rebel and cozzer, though. Rebel has a slight advantage going on to the dirt downhill. Just got to avoid the hole here. Bit of a wide line, and almost clips that rear wheel. Ends up with more speed coming out of here. Has had a few issues on this slide before. Seems to get this one consistent. cozzer, though, with a wider line, has more speed. Is he going to be able to get the snipe? Not quite, but it's 6,000ths over the line. MSR comes through in third, a second off the lead. Bagels with that touch at the start in last place. And on to last chance. We have our first last chance of the match, and it is Bagels. Can he wear Rebel's points down here?
I kind of hope so. It'll be exciting, not just Rebel, but also MSR. They're pretty close to each other. Well, that's unfortunate. Bagels has, I think we have to say at this point, crashed pretty much 12 out of the last 12 rounds or so. It's getting around that area. Now, it's not the end of the world yet, because that was a very, very minor touch in the context of this match. Has lost 7/10ths, but there's plenty of room for someone in front to make a mistake. That's worse. Now, that's much worse, I'll admit.
Yeah. Well, it seems like Bagels is not going to have his legendary last chance run here unless we have an enormous mistake from one of the front runners. He's 5 seconds behind as of right now. But we are seeing a good pace be put up from Rebel here. And dare I say it, Caster's curse incoming, his consistency has improved on this map so far.
Such a dangerous place on the track to say it as well. As you've said, we've seen the issues for Rebel specifically on this map near the end a couple of times. This time around, looking to keep it clean, keeps it safe, gets to the finish line, and that will be another round win in a row for Rebel, who has eaten up the gap to MSR, is now in fact in front of MSR by a couple of points. The big story that round is, of course, Bagels dropping to last chance, dropping straight on out. Do not pass go, do not collect $200.
Well, it seems like cozzer is going to be the victor now. That kind of seems set in stone, but it's all down to Rebel and MSR. Reminder, Rebel is actually the highest seed coming into this match, I believe. Yes, 4th seed. MSR the lowest, 14th seed. So we're looking at a match here between the 4th and the 14th seed to decide second place, essentially.
Yeah, the other important thing, though, is Rebel has also managed to take away the fastest time on this track since we've revisited it.
Yes,
so cozzer is starting to lose a couple of those, still holding on to the one for Drowsy, but hey, we're about to go to Drowsy next, and Rebel is definitely finding that pace that we said the peaks were higher from Rebel based on seeding. We also said the consistency was maybe a little lower, and we've definitely seen both sides of that for Rebel so far in this, but I think it's a mistake to count Rebel out of this match entirely just yet, because this is potentially a -9 points for cozzer in this round. Now, there will still be a couple of points lost for Rebel because there's no longer 4 players in the match, but there's a stand to be made here for Rebel, sitting now on 21, as cozzer will manage to make his way through into second place. I don't think this is over just yet if Rebel can start to string some of these rounds together.
Well, you make an excellent point, Nua. Really well thought out and well put together argument. However,
yes,
I raise you, cast your mind back to 15 minutes ago. Do you remember how Rebel was on Drowsy?
Rebel crashing on 75% of rounds on Drowsy. Yeah, and a median time of 68 seconds, 4 seconds off their best time.
Had you factored that into your well-thought-out argument?
Well, okay, so I had a little bit, because Rebel also crashed 50% of the time the first time that we visited Nina. Only crashed in one round that time around. Improved the times, improved the consistency. I think we're seeing better from Rebel on this second pass through the maps. Has started to maybe put something together. And also, with that in mind, I believe that Rebel's best map in seeding was Drowsy. So if Rebel is starting to feel a little bit more confident, is starting to maybe put together some of that quality, some of those good runs, it's only 4 rounds, right? And ultimately that's the issue here, is that 4 rounds is not really enough of a sample size to say anything. Even if Rebel did poorly the first time around, Rebel could just have flukily, maybe even, 4 great rounds back to back with the pace that we know they have.
Yeah, to be fair, actually, I will give you this, that Nina was statistically his worst map, and Drowsy was his best.
Yeah.
So maybe you're onto something?
I'm always onto something.
Let me look at cozzer. Cozzer, yeah, I mean 13th, 12th. So
Cozzer was very consistent.
Yeah, consistently 13th.
Well, we'll see how things go, because we are back and Rebel could prove us both wrong, well, me wrong more than anything, immediately by crashing out early in this first round. Has not done so, but caught a little bit more penalty grass than they would have wanted on the inside of that turn. Now, does go very aggressive through these turns. We saw that at the previous visit to this map. It's not really gaining Rebel a huge amount on that section, but it is a bit more speed as we enter through this section of the track, and that's a much better line as cozzer catches a wheel through the air. It will be Rebel through into first place and carrying decent speed, although there's a clip. That's deeply unfortunate on the landing there for Rebel. cozzer back there into first place. MSR, meanwhile, has fallen even further behind and will continue to do so. This is the battle at the front. It is fully in cozzer's favor right now. 7/10 the gap.
Yeah, was that a clip or a land bug? It looked like he'd made the jump cleanly enough, but apparently not. Game says no. cozzer, through the last couple of turns, just needs to make the finish and does so. Looked like a great round for Rebel, but yeah, that one clip and cozzer refusing to make a mistake ultimately gets another 4-point gap. MSR, though, losing out big time, and Rebel, with that second place as well, puts some distance between himself and his nearest challenger.
I do think that everything I was kind of saying about how Rebel still had a chance was still maybe in the fight kind of depended on winning a lot more rounds between here and the end, or at the very least beating cozzer even if MSR managed to come first in the rounds. And that one loss, that one second place immediately just makes the scoreboard feel so much worse.
Yeah, it does. I mean, he's keeping up with cozzer, and MSR is still playing his game of just hang back, play it safe, don't crash, and come through if there's a mistake. But at this point, both players are driving so consistently that it doesn't seem like that tactic works any longer. I think whatever happens in this round, he would be going on to last chance, so it doesn't really matter that he's in last place right now. But
could
what
win
does
the round.
matter... That's true. But what does matter is this battle between cozzer and Rebel, because Rebel could stay on last chance, and it's not going to actually be that many rounds that he'd have to stay on last chance for if he can just chip away at cozzer's points haul.
I mean, again, the -2s while MSR is still here, although that may not last a huge amount longer, as MSR will enter last chance right now. But yeah, Rebel is now dropping to 13. There's one more round of the current point values to go, assuming MSR gets eliminated this round. But that could potentially be Rebel on 11 and cozzer on 30 if they manage to eliminate MSR. Could get even better for Rebel. If MSR manages to beat cozzer in this round and Rebel manages to win this round, that'd be great. But I don't think that's the most likely outcome.
No, we haven't seen Rebel make a mistake yet, and he has been the most, or one of the most inconsistent players, at least relative to cozzer. So a mistake could be round the corner, but I think you're right, Nu. I didn't really buy into it just based on previous performance, but Rebel now is driving a lot better, does make a clip there. He's still within touching distance of cozzer, though. Makes the ramp as well. Drift is better for cozzer, gets that inside line. Rebel is going to have more speed coming onto the dirt, though. Still not out of this one. You can see they are neck and neck as they go onto the grass. Downhill, it's going to be such a close round, and it holds such importance as well.
Yeah, that's great from Rebel on the inside. Got a little bit more of that solid surface. Good speed from cozzer, though. Rebel needs to keep it out of the wall. I think cozzer has him. I think to the line it'll be cozzer. It is Rebel. The speed was there from cozzer. The line was there for Rebel. And the gap between them is 31 thousandths. MSR will be eliminated. But Rebel in the 1v1, I think, has left himself with a little bit of wiggle room, with a little bit of space to maybe make this happen.
Yeah, these rounds are going to be so important now. It's going to have to be back-to-back-to-back wins for Rebel. And
-4 and -8 are the point repartitions now with just 2 players left. So Rebel does still really need to win quite a lot, is honestly the truth.
Yeah, I mean, the pace is looking great. He's already 3/10 up on cozzer this round. Could even safe it a little bit, to be honest, because in the second half, he had that crash going into this outside dirt here on the previous round. Doesn't touch this time, but on the final stage of the map, does seem to have cozzer's number, but this round has cozzer's number everywhere. Look at the pace advantage that he's got. 6/10, and cozzer by no means is driving a slow round right now. Oh, yeah, and the clip as well from cozzer. Forced to push and forced into a mistake.
Yeah, it wasn't a slow round. It'll be a little bit of a slower one now. But as you say, it was a forced-to-push situation. Rebel should cruise through to an easy win. Much less pressure than the last time we reached this finish line. And that is Rebel getting that -4. There's the -8 for cozzer. It is worth also highlighting that whatever happens, however well Rebel drives, he will end up on last chance first here. Gets, at best, 2 more rounds before last chance. 1 second place immediately drops Rebel to last chance here, and is just looking to put the pressure on cozzer by spending as long as possible off last chance, continuing to hammer those -8s into cozzer's score. And we could get a photo finish here. This could come all the way down to double last chance and to the wire.
I will highlight, though, at this point, if Rebel were to lose the match, he would still pick up as many points from the match as cozzer, because he now has all 3 fastest lap points. So they would both end up on 12 points, which, you know, I would call that a good result for Rebel, to be honest, because yes, the consistency hasn't been there, but maybe he's just been hyper aware of, you know, maybe I'm not as consistent, maybe cozzer wins, but if I can get those fastest lap points, there's no difference. I've essentially won the match, as it's a tie, you know?
This is going to be such a fun finish. We go all the way back to Creel to sort things out there. Yeah, I mean, that is, I believe it's not quite guaranteed that we will not see our first map one more time. There is a chance that we see Nina again, as it would be Hendo winning 2 rounds, getting down to last chance. That would leave cozzer still on 14 points and still a couple of rounds away from going down to last chance himself, which would bring us back to a double last chance and 1 round for glory on our first map on Nina.
Well,
is a potential situation.
It would be quite the scenario, but we'll see how it pans out. I'm trying to cast my mind back to Creel, and Rebel I don't think was quite as good as cozzer, but there was definitely still consistency issues for both players. I remember cozzer definitely missed the finish at one point, just bonking the outside of that hole. But it's a close round so far. Both players not making mistakes. Cozzer has a slightly better line, although here comes Rebel on the inside, takes first place for the time being. Drift is better for cozzer, who is going to carry more speed through here. Goes full outside. You'll probably see him pop up again here. Does have the speed going into the finish, but I think the drift there just eluded him a little bit. And Rebel takes first place here, -4. So regardless of what happens next round, we'll be going on to last chance.
Hey, this is I was giving cozzer too much credit. I thought that he was still on 30, leaving that last map. My goldfish brain had forgotten that in fact he was already on 22. And so things are a little bit closer, and I think it is possible. There is no way that we make it out of this map. Now, that crash for Rebel is fine. I know we're all panicking because we just saw the player that we're rooting for as the underdog right now crash a little bit at the start of the track, but that's fine. Whatever happens this round, Rebel will end up on last chance. Now, the reason that you still want Rebel to beat cozzer is because if Rebel at any point slips up and picks up a second place, such as potentially this one, that does give cozzer an extra lifeline. It means that he can survive another round before that last chance, and it leaves the pressure on Hendo all the more, on Rebel all the more. And that is the direction we're going, Orion. This is going to be cozzer remaining on 10 points with at least 2 rounds to try and eliminate Rebel.
Yeah, this is also a great chance for cozzer to try and get that fastest lap point. We'll see what it is over the line. It's a 57.5, which
that is the fastest lap, I believe.
That is the fastest lap. So cozzer taking that point away from Rebel. If it finished as it is right now, cozzer would be on 13, Rebel on 11. So yeah, that's actually quite a big blow from cozzer because taking that point away, it's not going to finish level.
Huge round from cozzer and a tough time for Rebel now, who does need to step it back up. No more mistakes allowed. And for a player who has been struggling with consistency all evening long, that could potentially come back to bite them a little bit. Maybe, though, they're going to step up under the pressure. It is cozzer who's made a little mistake early on, just catching a little bit of air, and the lack of speed then compromising the follow-up drift, betrayed by muscle memory. And the lack of speed on that occasion means cozzer drops even further behind as Rebel is shooting off into the distance, nearly a second and a half in front on a very important round.
Yeah, can Rebel take this point back here? Is he going to try and push it? He's on last chance. Surely,
yeah, it's scary.
He doesn't push this hard when he's been so accident prone, but right now the time is looking excellent from Rebel. Just a few more turns to go. Hope we don't see a finish incident. Looks like he's got the lineup just about. 57.6 is not going to take that point back, but crucially finishes first. cozzer down to 2 points, and we'll go on to last chance next round no matter what. Although I say that, Rebel still needs to finish first.
Yeah, that was still a very, very good time from Rebel. 57.6 is pretty close to the fastest time that he personally has set in this match, which was a 57.622. That was a 57.665. So Rebel looking dialed in right now, as long as you can keep that car out of the walls for 2 more rounds. Oh dear!
Flipped there though. Does cozzer know is the question. Rebel is going to have about half a second to catch up. I wouldn't say it's out of the question. Half a second is definitely a possible gain. He's looking a little bit shaky, though, and cozzer extending his lead. Nice drift there. It's going to have slightly more speed going onto the grass, but cozzer doesn't opt to go for the full inside line, and there's the touch from Rebel, pushing as hard as he possibly could. And is that game over? We've got the finish to go for cozzer, who has failed it before. Surely must see that Rebel is so far behind. Does he make it? Yes, he does. cozzer survives a late comeback from Rebel. 57.8 the time is going to keep that point as well. So it finishes with cozzer winning the match and getting an extra point. 13 points for him, 11 for Rebel, and it was 6 points for MSR in third and 3 points for Bagels in fourth.
That was lovely. I do have to say, I mean, that was incredible. Before we do get Epos back with us, he did manage to call that match pretty correctly in the end in terms of the 2 battles that went on. It didn't look like that was the direction it was going for a long time, but it did sort things out by itself in the end. I also have to admit that production was saying things in our ear and asked for a thumbs up, and I gave it, and I have no idea what I gave a thumbs up for, Ryan. So oh, Epos has to give a thumbs up. I gave a thumbs up, and you know what? I'm happy about that fact as well. Epos has also given a thumbs up because the question was, are you ready to rejoin us? Epos, hey, that was a Div 2 match of all time.
That was a Div 2 match of all time. But yeah, I mean, Rebel was quick, man, but cozzer's with the consistency. But the real surprise there was, even though I've forgotten the name, which is absolutely terrible, from MSR. Yeah, he performed pretty good. Yeah, I expected Bagels to take the win out of that battle, but nah, MSR did pretty good, surprisingly. So fair play to him.
Yeah, there was a comment Orion made about, Bagel's performance in seeding, about, when we noted that he had come 13th in seeding for BIPL, or was 13th in Div 2 for BIPL Season 2, 13th now again for Season 3, that maybe just a lack of time to prep for this first week, and especially now with that first week of matches coming immediately after the seeding, just a little tough, because Bagels, I think it's fair to say, Orion, did not look comfortable this evening. There was, I think, nearly 12 rounds in a row with crashes in them, which ultimately is what sent him crashing out.
Yeah, I think he's a great time attack player, just obviously struggling a little bit in rounds, struggling for consistency a lot. So it does kind of scream a lack of practice. If he did full practice it and still crash, then I'm sorry. He's just had a bad night. Happens to the best of us. Yeah, happens to the best of us. So, but I mean, we've seen him on an upward trend before in BIPL Season 2. We'll see if that's the same case going forward.
He did start week 1 with a win in Season 2, so...
yeah, but that was...
But apart from
that was a week after the seeding last time.
No,
right?
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I believe so. So, no, you're right. There was differences there, and I do look forward to seeing how Bagels can do across the rest of the season as well. We are going to pull up the table then to see how things have gone across the division. We talked about the full 15 points available if you win your match and pick up 3 fastest lap points as well. And there is OC doing the Irish proud, staying at the top of the table, followed by Killian, who picks up 2 fastest lap points and a win. And then from there on down, things getting pretty interesting. Cozzer definitely jumping up the seeding immediately with that one. Rebel sitting just behind as well, coming second and picking up those 2 fastest lap points. Done him well in this situation, Epos.
Yeah, exactly. He's sitting pretty comfortably at the table. Rebel sitting pretty comfy as well. So I think coming into the next matches, yeah, it's going to be a close div, man. 100%. I mean, I talked about OC Killian, Cozzer Rebel, but Steg as well coming in with a win. It's looking pretty stacked at the top.
Yeah, of course. I mean, next week, Ryan, these players do play, and in week 3, they play 2 matches rather than just the 1+ seeding that we've had tonight. So it suddenly becomes much more important to have a good night. I'm just glancing through, seeing how these matches go for the other players that we've just had now in our match. And things are going to be tough, I think, for Cozzer in particular. Plays the 3rd seed Steg in that match next week. Both of them currently tied on points. Is definitely going to be an interesting battle to kick off next Thursday.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that myself. Cozzer versus...
Cozzer, Steg, Palubara, and Darklight 203 is the match.
Yeah, I'm seeing it. Yeah, that's a hard match. Steg is gonna definitely be stiff competition. By the look of things, Steg has won his match and got an additional fastest lap point. Other matches, you've got Killian against Octo, who we saw with a quite good performance in seeding. Bagels has a very difficult match next week. We've also got OC versus Coops, who is currently 6th. We are actually going to be talking to Cozzer, who is here. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome. Congratulations on the win. I think about halfway through the match, none of us expected it to be as tight as it ended up being. Were you feeling comfortable, and then did the nerves start to kick in a little bit towards the end?
Yeah, a bit of that, and also Rebel just picked up the pace so much on the second rotation of the maps. Like, honestly, it was just so unexpected.
Yeah.
He seemed pretty inconsistent on the first rotation, and you could see that he was maybe had a slight pace advantage on you, but ultimately you were winning more rounds. And then, like you say, he just managed to iron out his inconsistencies and start putting the rounds together. Were you kind of aware of that? Was it affecting your gameplay, or were you kind of at the same level throughout the whole match?
I was honestly at the same level through the whole match because I just knew like eventually he would make a mistake and I could then capitalize on it. But I think my consistency on some of the maps and actually like taking the rounds all the way was a bit meh.
Yeah.
So going into next week, because let me just have a little look at the matches that you have for next week.
Match 1 is Palubara, Darklight, and Steg. You're tied with Steg at the moment on points. And your second match will be Gnugai, Rob RS1, and Coops 39.
Yeah, so looking at the map specifically against Steg, who's someone who has a bit more consistency, a bit more pace, how do you think you're going to play it? How do you think you're going to train? You're going to go for pace, or do you think you just want to keep with your consistency?
I think on these maps being, quite difficult, I think I do have to just keep with the consistency. I doubt I can really keep up with him.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, it worked well for you this week, so if it ain't broken, don't fix it.
Yeah.
I will say, obviously, Steg is definitely the match to focus on there, being tied on points. Steg is the 3rd seed as well. Things aren't going to get much easier for you in your second match of the night because you come in as 5th seed up against then 6th seed, 8th seed, and 9th seed in that second match. So also going to be potentially a very decisive one for the middle of the table.
Yeah, I think that one's probably more important. I think I can write off coming top 3.
I wouldn't put yourself down that much. You played a really good match tonight.
Yeah, but OC and Killian are just they were on another level in seeding, and I know they really threw seeding.
Well, that's fair enough. I am going to ask then, cozzer, any final things do you want to add while we have you here on the broadcast? Anyone you want to say hello to?
Not really.
Fair enough. Well, congratulations. Sorry. I thought you said something. That's on me, honestly. Listen, we've already established that I'm sleep deprived this evening, so apologies. Yes. And cozzer, well done once again. A great start to Division 2, match win, and sniping away the match record. Actually, before I let you go, I mean, you managed to snipe away that match record on the final track as well. Very impressive.
Yeah, it's just really annoying with Rebel's pace on the first 2 maps.
Yeah. But hey, you did well, and now I will let you go just in time so we can all admire the hype train and get ready to throw the break. cozzer, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going on over there in Twitch chat. BIPL is back and everyone is delighted about it. Thanks everyone for supporting the community. I think as far as I know, all of that money does go straight back into running events and to making sure that we can continue to do things here. So it is, of course, always appreciated. We're going to throw to a quick break. We are going to get ready to come back for the Division 1 action in BIPL Season 3. Thanks again for joining us and we'll see you soon.